Maps lie, and they help us locate the truth. My name for a country or city may not be the name the people who live in that country or city claim for the space. A flat map of a round world centers one place and relegates other places to the margins. LaVern Baker, as depicted in my novel Black Bottom Saints, is a person who thinks about matters such as these, about the ways that maps lie, about the way they help us locate the truth, which is why she is first and foremost the patron saint of Globetrotters in Black Bottom Saints. I'm honored that Erin McAnally invited me to enter into conversation with the East-West Center, and thrilled that this conversation I've been invited to centers LaVern Baker. In the brief time I have with you, I want to raise a few questions about what it means to put LaVern Baker at the center of an East-West story. But first, let me tell you just a little bit about her. LaVern Baker was born in Chicago in 1929. When she first appears in the census in 1930, she was marked colored or Negro. She had the very good fortune of being mentored from a very early age by her aunt, the legendary guitar great and songwriter known as Memphis Minnie. LaVern began singing on stage as Little Miss Sharecropper while still in her teens, performing in a straw hat and denim. In her 20s, she took to the stage as LaVern Baker, singing in silk as smooth as her extraordinary voice. Unfortunately, she was tormented throughout this period by one Georgia Gibbs, a white singer who would copy LaVern's vocal performances, syllable and sound, effectively stealing the intellectual property of her phrasing, interpretation, and note bending, as well as even song choices. Still, LaVern managed to achieve success. She was landing on the record charts and on national television, but Georgia Gibbs, performing LaVern, but with a white face and white body, was landing higher on those charts, was being paid more, receiving far more opportunities, though it was widely acknowledged that the original was in every sonic respect finer than the copy. It wasn't a question of refinement. It was a question of racist preference for the music being delivered to and by a white body. LaVern, refusing to be stolen from, moved to the Philippines and began performing in an American Officers Club located at Subic Bay. She would perform in residence there for about 2 decades. Eventually, she would return to the United States at a triumphant performance at Madison Square Garden. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, becoming the second female solo artist ever to be inducted by that extraordinary institution. What does LaVern have to do with the East-West Center? Many things. First and foremost, it locates the East as a territory of liberation for one Black woman, LaVern Baker. And as LaVern Baker is a character in a novel I wrote, it locates the East as a liberation space in one Black writer's imagination. Black Bottom Saints was published in 2020 and has fortunately found many readers. This fact locates the East as a liberation space for many Black female readers and for all readers of Black Bottom Saints. Cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, have long been important in America and in the American imagination. In the American history and American imagination, there persists a strong north-south divide. We might say today that we should perhaps be thinking more about rural-urban divides, but there persists a strong north-south divide. The LaVern Baker story complicates our understanding of East-West in the American imagination. LaVern Chicago is a Southern space because it is peopled with folks newly arrived from Mississippi, the people she referenced and honored with her sharecropping costume. This is something that the narrator of my novel, Ziggy Johnson, Head Over My Shoulder, profoundly understands. For LaVern, Chicago is a Southern space. I need you to consider this possibility for the fictional LaVern and the real LaVern. Subic base would have also been a Southern space. For American officers' clubs have a history of Southern inflected race-based segregation. The American military has long had a Southern accent, whether the accent is white Kentucky Southern or Black Chicago via Mississippi Southern. LaVern Subic, as depicted in the novel Black Bottom Saints, is at once East and South, and it is a new kind of safe for LaVern. Her East and South, her Subic, is safe from economic strictures, safe from the theft of her sound, safe from the idea that she was not as beautiful because she was brown. The chapter about LaVern Baker in Black Bottom Saints talks much about the theft of intellectual property, but it talks about other thefts. And one of the other thefts it talks about is beauty theft. Ziggy believes that LaVern is beautiful, but she believes her beauty has been stolen. And part of the theft of her beauty is from and by audience. I speak from Nashville to the East West Center, so I'd like to take a moment to highlight a song LaVern would have heard on a Subic jukebox. A song I don't get to talk about that often, except for in my course on Black country at Vanderbilt, or when I'm teaching country lyric and American culture. A complicated song that is rightly read as racist and sexist, but that's not all it is. A song called Filipino Baby. First recorded in 1937, it became a hit in 1947 with an act called Cowboy Copas. So much can be said about this song, which actually has roots in the 19th century. But I want to stop for a moment to raise the question, how might this song have been heard, interpreted, read by LaVern? What would the dark-eyed, dark-skinned beauty have meant to her? Would she have known that earlier 19th century version of the song available in sheet music that referenced a colored sailor and a black-faced girl, in addition to the Cowboy Copas version? We know for sure that LaVern sang Tweedledee and Jim Dandy and I Cried a Tear at Subic. Those were the standards that got her in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's also likely that she sang the Bessie Smith standards that she loved and honored in a late 50s album. We don't know whether she sang Filipino Baby, but we can surely assume she was asked to sing it. And we can wonder, we can imagine what the singing or the not singing would have meant to her. That is a value of adding fiction to our concerns and our considerations of the East-West and politics. It's the advantage of adding fiction to our anti-racist toolkits when we want to build them, because fiction engages empathy in very unusual ways. Fiction asks new questions. I want to read you a tiny bit from my fiction. Until she did it, LaVern took off. I'm not sure how it was she had heard of the Philippines, but that's where she told me she was truly headed when she left on that USO show. She had worked abroad, Australia and Italy, but I think it was a Black serviceman who told her about the Philippines and the good life she could have there. It was some kind of strange do-over. She would have servants and she could actually afford and new clothes all the time because help, clothes, and food were cheap, cheap, cheap in the Philippines. In search of an easier street, she went globetrotting. She quit us, chasing a place where Georgia Gibbs couldn't hear her. She quit us. She stopped recording. People in Detroit counted on LaVern to turn theft to beauty, and she quit us. She returned to singing in a room full of soldiers, in a room full of uniforms like she had done when she first started out and the soldiers were dressed for returning from World War II. She found and discovered belonging in a place where the war always seemed right around the corner, and a revolution in a world of spies and Muslims and Christians, a place more different than many could imagine from Alabama. A place where she could forget Georgia Gibbs, forget sharing a bill with Little Miss Cornchucks, forget once being Little Miss Sharecropper. I am forgetting. My name has been printed on thousands upon thousands of poster bills. That's Ziggy talking. I have a Singer poster bill in the apartment I share with Baby Doll. It advertises the Flame Show Bar. At the top of the word flame, in those bold burning letters, and then the address 4264 John R. at the corner of Camfield. The flame was right down the street from the Gotham Hotel. The name Tamara Hayes in big letters, then Andre Dessay, and then Nellie Hill and Leonard and Leonard. My name is in a box, Joe Ziggy Johnson, comedy MC. Our host was Morris Wasserman. Just above my name, the letters that read, Little Miss Sharecropper, back from a coast to coast tour. And there was a number to call for reservations. Back in that day, people came out in droves to come see us. Don't let this get forgot. Don't let this get forgot. Those are the fictional Ziggy's fictional words, and these are mine. Don't let LaVern's presence in the East, in the Philippines, be forgot. We all know Josephine Baker lit out for Paris. Why don't we know LaVern lit out for Manila? How does the East get written out of the Black story and the Black out of the story of the East? This is a subject worthy of thought. I hope some of that thought happens while you listen to LaVern's extraordinary voice. I too am a Black woman who spent time in the East, in the Philippines. I was married in 1985. And when I got married, I went shortly thereafter with my new husband to the Philippines, where I was there in time to see the People's Power Revolution and serve as a State Department wife. So many Black people have spent time in relation to the military, in relation to the Foreign Service, and in many other ways in the East. Yet, so often, we get written out of the East-West story. I want to thank Erin McAnally for inviting me into this conversation. I'm so pleased to honor an alumna of the East-West Center.